You know, it seems like just yesterday the BMW scoring machine was so great. David Lowery, look who we have now. It's the B from the BMW. Lance Blanks is in the house.
It's great to have Lance. It's great to have a basketball guy on that's my age. You know, these younger guys, it makes me feel old.
That's
I feel
right.
at home age-wise with Lance. So remember them well.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you, Mike. I'm honored to be a part of it, and I appreciate the little reminder regarding age, because it does happen quickly. And as we were talking about before you kicked off the show here, I think I'm the senior of the group.
Barely. You're just a few months older than us.
Yeah, by months, just by months.
Yeah.
Lance is 35 and we're 34 for those watching at home.
I'm sure everyone believes that.
Yeah,
plus
right.
20. Plus 20. So
they do.
Lance, I can't
don't
believe
know
it
if
feels
you can
like
be the same age as your
I was just going to say, I can't believe it feels like just like yesterday that I was in Indianapolis watching you make it in the first and second round and get to the Sweet 16 in 90. That was so much fun.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing up those great memories for me. Probably easily one of the highlights of my life and career. I mean, you said it well. Going to Indianapolis, I mean, you kind of know, but don't know what you don't know. And just so happened, we beat Purdue, not realizing how much of a rival that they were to Indiana. So we became instant stars in Indianapolis because Indiana was so happy to see us get that victory. But Mike and David, bringing up those memories, it just gives me great feelings of my time on the 40 acres and with the group of guys that I was able to play with in the tournament.
Well, you guys were a lot of fun to watch just with the style of play. Talk to us about a little bit the style of play, playing for Coach Penders and the Eddie Orns and that group and the system they were running or let you guys run, and how it was kind of a little bit ahead of its time.
David, that's a good point you bring up. Sometimes programs, when they change and go a different direction organizationally with new coaches, sometimes they like a different look. And in this case, obviously Coach Weltlich was here for several years, and he played a little bit more of a methodical and deliberate style of play. And then when the Lost
Dogs style,
it's a lot of motion and not a lot of high volume of shots and or possessions or pressing. So it was just a little bit of a different style, to your point. And Coach Penders came in here and he said, no, we're going to run and we're going to press and we're going to play really fast. We're going to take a lot of shots. And, oh, by the way, we're going to win. And so that was pretty much exactly what we did. And it was just a joy to play in that system. I think all of us, David, have a story about playing with Coach Penders where he pulled either myself or Travis or Joey aside and said, hey, look, if you don't shoot, you're going to be sitting right here next to me. And so all of us got the message, and we made sure that we put up as many shots as we could, as often as we could, because that was the style of play that we played during his tenure.
What a great thing for the coach to tell you, hey, you better shoot that thing or you're going to sit over here. Usually it's the other way around.
That's right. That's right.
That's a scorer's dream right there.
Yeah. I honestly cannot remember, and I don't think it ever happened, one time where Coach Penders said, don't take that shot. It was quite the contrary. So he was just a joy to play for. And as you mentioned, being here at a time when there hadn't been a ton of success in basketball, it was just really exciting for all of us. And the city got behind us. And it was a different town then, as you know, Mike. But the town, it was closer to a college town, if you will. And town was behind us. And it was just an absolute blast coming home from Indianapolis and seeing all the fans in old Mueller Airport.
What amazes me is that I know that both years, even in '89 when y'all just made it to the second round and lost, I guess, to Missouri, but both years y'all were full of confidence, especially in '90 when y'all went to the Sweet 16 and then made it to the Elite Eight. I mean, you're going to play Xavier. And because they were kind of an underdog, you had a good shot and you beat them. Then Arkansas, and you knew you could beat them because of what happened in the Stroll and Nolan game. But y'all were an 11 seed and a 10 seed those 2 years. Do you look back and go, we were really surprising. We were really huge underdogs, and we were Cinderellas, and it was amazing what we did.
Yeah, you bring that up, and when you're in it, sometimes you don't have the sense of awareness you would today. And I don't know if some of my teammates would say this, or even Coach Penders. I couldn't have told you what seed we were. And to your point of confidence and belief, we just knew that we were a pretty good team, and we felt like we could beat anybody, and at worst, we would be in pretty much any game, especially because of our style of play, but also Coach Penders had a way of getting us ready for postseason. And so the marrying of confidence, style of play, ability, and just our confidence was it was in a perfect alignment to go into the tournament. 10th, 11th, 12th, 15th, first, it didn't matter where our seeding was, but we were going to try to get it done against whoever was next on the schedule.
Yeah. So I want to go back just a little bit further, just in your development as an athlete growing up. What was it like having a father who played in the NFL, pro athlete, the pros and cons of having that relationship, having the dad there that had success on the professional level?
Yeah, David, thank you for that question. It's a little bit of an emotional time still for me because I just lost my dad back before the end of the year, just right as we were getting into the meat of the holidays. But in regards to your question, it was a gift that people talk about as you get older, your parents get more accurate or more right. I always held my dad with a high level of respect. I revered him, and he was one of my primary heroes in life. And so having that, I guess just as a young person, it was hard to appreciate as much as I appreciate what he taught me and what he showed me then. It was the positives were you had someone who would create an avenue or blazed a trail for you to show you what it took to get to the highest level in your particular sport or industry. And I got to see his excellence and how he dealt with hurdles and otherwise up close, which I think is rare. The other positive is just the recognition. In sport, you're always trying to get people to notice what your art is and what you're able to do. Well, the connectivity to my dad made others interested because of what he did, and obviously our last name. And then the cons of that are you're always striving for another level, even when you're at the highest level. Nothing is ever good enough for you internally, because you always think there's another level you can go. And so, as the saying goes, an artist's work is never done. You're never done, or you never feel like you've done much, because the way my dad instilled it in me is that there's always another level you can go.
Yeah, and I lost my father about a year ago, just over a year ago now. So I know that we're laughing about our age, but those are the things that, start coming up in the process of life. And so, yeah, I just wanted to get that perspective. And I have so many buddies I played with at Texas who were in the same situation. They had dads who were stars athletically.
Yep.
I think one of the neat things is I get older, I go to the baseball park and I see these dads who are stars watching their kid. And they can't control anything, and they're a nervous wreck. And they were never that nervous playing. They were smooth, cool daddy. They get that kid out there, they are locked in, zoomed in, and you can't talk to them. So it's the way it should be, right, with the parent. And so I think that's a real neat dynamic that I really wanted to ask you about. Cool.
Yeah, that's well said. I never felt the pressure of my dad as watching. I always felt a connection to him, and it was motivating for me to have him there. I have an older brother who played football, and I think he had more of the pressure, particularly because he was in the same sport.
Yeah.
And I was not. In fact, my dad, I played football up until high school, and David, Mike, both of you know in Texas, by the time you get to high school, you've played at least 6 to 8 years of football.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but my dad was like, "You like to hit too much," and he probably saved my life because he's right. I love those collisions, so he wouldn't let me play. But just not being in football, I think, probably inadvertently took some of the pressure I might have felt had I played football like my father did.
And what I was describing was not necessarily the kids now. They're not pressure. It's their dad in the stands that are entertaining to watch. I mean, they're, you know, and the difference is, as they always tell me is, hey, when I was playing, I could do something about it. I could make a play. I could get a hit. I could catch a touch, whatever, make a tackle, make a jump shot. When I'm not playing and it's my kid out there and you want him so much for him or her to do well, you can't do anything about it up here, you know, but pray and say a couple of Hail Marys and cheer, you know.
Well put. Well put.
You know, when I think about your dad and your entire family, Lance, I think about draft night in 1990 and Detroit picks you and you come running down the stairs. I think you were doing some backflips practically and the whole family going crazy. I remember getting that video and getting so excited for you.
Yeah, I also remember that vividly. By the way, I don't know if it's David for Mike or Mike for David, but either your memory or your research team is off the charts, buddy. You guys are bringing up some very, very fond memories.
Well, I think you've got somebody in your family in baseball as well, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, now you're showing off. Yes, I do. Marvell Blanks.
Hey, Coach Fender said I got to shoot.
You guys. So really, a lot of that was it was the trajectory of my career from high school, because I was pretty good high school player as it related to the nation or the country or region. And I went to Virginia and essentially didn't play. It was my first experience of that, which can create a level of disappointment, depression, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But then I came back here at UT and had to sit out a year. So it was my first 3 years out of high school were horrific. And I thought, man, maybe this is it, and maybe I'm not all of what I thought I was going to be. So if you can imagine that, and then 24 months later, being drafted by the team that you're watching play for the NBA championship versus some of your childhood idols and Joe Dumars and Michael Jordan and Pippen, and these guys you've been watching, and all of a sudden, 6 months later, you're on the court in that game. Yeah, I was pretty excited, Mike. That's a pretty huge spread from not going into the game before the water boy at Virginia to being drafted within 24 months. Yeah, I was excited, particularly being drafted by Detroit.
And perseverance is how sports work sometimes. It's just how it works,
It is how it works. It is. And the other team at the time, because you kind of get a sense, because people are telling you, if you're there, we're going to take you. If you're here, we're going to take you. So Detroit had told me I was one of two people they would have taken. And LA had told me they were going to take me as well. And so the LA picked after. Yeah, did they pick after? Or did they pick before? I think they picked after. I cannot remember. You might have to fact check me on this. But I was hoping that I went to Detroit because I thought it was the better fit. Now, I had to try to figure it out behind two Hall of Famers and whatever. But just the style of play, which wasn't very fast, but in terms of how grindy they were and how rugged they were.
Physical.
Yeah, they were physical. And I thought, well, I got some football in my blood, so maybe I could survive in that environment. And I think that's the best word. Physical is a good word.
You talk about memories. I got a great memory to share with you. It's my first Lance Blanks memory. Now, mind you, your first year at UT, I was still a student, and then I graduated. So I actually went to one of your March Madness games up in the Reunion Arena when you beat Georgia Tech, but I didn't know you yet. Yep. So I get a job working at KView in Austin in 1989 in December. And it's Christmas break. Y'all are still practicing, of course, playing games. You just played Florida and Dwayne Chinsis. And I go to the Irwin Center when y'all have a late evening practice. And I show up right at the end of the practice. And I decided to do a story because I think it was Inside Sports or Sport Magazine. They'd said something about Jamie Campaglio being a top assistant and got a couple of quotes from him. So I was going to do a little story about him. So I interviewed Jamie, interviewed a couple of players. I'm on the court while players, including Lance, are kind of milling around. Practice is basically over. It's very laid back, a typical Christmas break type of practice with Pender's teams. And I'm standing there with the microphone, and I say, and Jamie Campagliano is doing this and this and this and this. Here, take two. Jamie Campagliano is doing this and this and this and this. And I do a couple of stand-ups, and Lance says, say, man, it's Campaglio. I was like, oh, God, yes. Thanks, Lance. I appreciate that. Lance saved me from embarrassment.
Oh, that's good, man.
Yeah, but I bet you still had that great hair, Barnes. Look at that hair, baby. Come on. Every show.
Oh.
You got to help a guy out, man. If you're chopping
awesome.
that thing up, putting them letters in different spots.
That's right. I've always been in debt.
If you'd had lunch around, you might have got married sooner. You know, you didn't have to chase Kim for 2 or 3 years.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Right,
that's true.
Yeah.
So, in all of your days, you played a little NBA, then you went overseas. How fun was that staying in the game, no matter where you played? But did you also run into people who reminded you about your past, whether it was Virginia or Texas, and maybe you upset them in March Madness? And how close was that family, and how much did y'all talk old days of basketball?
Well, this call is an example or interview conversation is an example of the legacy of that. Once again, you don't realize it when you're going through it, but when you travel the world, you're seeing guys as they're going through their career or reaching back to school. In this case, Coach Penders, obviously, he stuck around several years after we left. And Travis was playing overseas, Joey. So the bond is it's an evergreen. You just never lost it. Definitely played against guys or with guys, whether it was in the minor league and the NBA and otherwise, or people who saw you that you just telling the stories. I remember this game. Oh, we hated to play against you for this reason or not. So it lasts. It does. It lasts forever, Mike. And it's been amazing. And it's also made me appreciate what we did. And it's really, the impact is much greater than the amount of time. You don't realize it, because that was for us, the whole BMW thing was a 2-year run.
Yeah.
That came to an end far too quickly, but here we are 30 plus years later and still talking about it like it was yesterday. And it really is a tribute. This is not really about me. I was fortunate to be a part of it. Coach Penders and what he did coming here and actually embracing Joey and Travis and Alvin Higgs and all the people we embraced, myself, to be able to have the success we did. So it's just gives me goosebumps, and seriously.
You hear about so many coaches who don't want to embrace players who are not really theirs. They didn't recruit them. They didn't bring them in as a transfer. And I'm waiting for my guys to come in. But Penders didn't do that, and he had so much success with y'all, and that made it so great.
Yeah, it was amazing. He did. He just picked it up as if he had recruited us. He really, and this isn't about me, but I will tell the story. I recently actually attended Coach Penders' Hall of Fame induction up in Kansas, and it was really amazing to be there and spend the time and watch him, a star amongst stars with his career. But he started talking about former players that he spent time with and what they were doing. And he injects me in that, and I'm just like shrinking in the room, like, stop. That's it. But that's just how he is and was. And A lot of coaches are comfortable talking about self, which is fine. But Coach Penders was always good about kicking it off to the players. And from day one, when he came here, he embraced us just like we were his family.
Yeah. That leads me into my next question. And I went backwards while I'm going to go a little bit forwards now. So you're a player in college, great player in college. You play in the NBA a couple of years, play in Europe, play overseas, do the minor league thing. Then you become an administrator, general manager, coach. What was that like, transitioning? You're on one end one day, and the next day you're cutting, releasing, trading. Was that a big shift? How did that work in your mind? How did that time period work for you as you transition into administration, basically?
Yeah, I appreciate these questions, David. The transition was day and night in terms of the environment, the tools and the skills, especially because there's a physical element to playing. And you know that you've had a lot of experience in sport. Is so far different in what's required in playing, the thought process, the competition, et cetera, than what's in a front office, to your point, administration or negotiations, player procurement, all the above is not even close. What I'm most proud of, which is why I'm glad you asked the question, my post-playing career far, not even close, outweighs my playing career. And I include, you can take all the high points you want. And the reason is, one, you talk about the percentages of making it as a player. You look at all these great players who either never get a chance or never make it, and you're one of the fortunate ones to make it. That's incredible and virtually impossible. Well, the numbers are even more scary in the front office side, let alone to become a general manager. And so I am that part of my career, without tooting my horn, I'm just very proud of, because it's challenging not only to survive, but to transition from playing, the thinking or the type of thinking that's required. It's probably my proudest moment. And also in that, David, I've been at the bottom of the business all the way to the top of the vertical and worked with or against the best in the business. So all of that has really helped me have some level of success, whatever level you want to consider it, within the business, whether it's understanding what it's like to go overseas and play, or understanding what the draft and what it's like to be on either the player side or the picking side, being cut, the minor leagues. There's really not hardly anything I haven't done in the industry which has really facilitated any success I've had post-playing.
That's cool.
Yeah. Lance, you get a lot of the credit, so to speak, and you know better than anybody, if you deserve it, about Tony Parker. Finding Tony Parker, making him the star of the Spurs. And two-part question. Number one is, how true is that? And number two is, if you had not done that, would you have risen as high as you did in the NBA hierarchy at Cleveland, Phoenix, etc.?
Boy, you guys, you put a dude on the hot seat. These are some. So
this is easy.
Now we got research with these tough questions. So I'll start with the first one in terms of Tony and I are linked together so heavily because of when I was in San Antonio. It was the genesis of the transition from me playing to going into the front office, and I was actually not sure if it would be front office or coaching where I would end up. I never, I thought only in terms of being a player. That was my goal. I want to be an NBA player.
Right.
But after that, whatever happens. I'm going to work my hardest and figure it out. And so I started leaning towards being in the front office, and we were in Chicago, and they have the pre-draft. So you're looking at players. We bring in Tony, and Pop's asking me to be his workout dummy, basically. And so, in fact, I worked him out so hard and was so rugged with him. RC accused me of trying to make playing comeback. No, I promise. And RC, obviously, he's president now of the organization. I'm not trying to make any comeback. You asked me to play him tough, and Pop wanted me to see how he would do, as do I wanted to see. So from that point, we obviously worked him out a few more times, but being part of the organization linked us, and then working him out, and then the story got out that I was the one who worked him out. And then we all had different roles in the organization. Right. As Pop in his infinite wisdom has done with this record, he said, all credit is dished out to others, which is accurate. You can't disagree with or dispel what he said. So I would not put me as the responsible party. I would put me as a person in the organization doing his job in terms of trying to help Tony develop and be the best he can. Obviously, Pop probably had the biggest influence, as did the players. RC with his research and drafting. I mean, there were so many people. So I was just part of that. I at the time was married, and we helped he and his girlfriend at the time, Lolo. We spent a lot of time with them on just the general life development side. But I would put me way down on the list as a primary to Tony being and doing what he did.
Oh, you're selling yourself short, I think.
That's just I'm just keeping it real with you, honestly. But the story lives greater than what I was doing there. How about that?
Sounds like it was a team effort to me, and he played his part. He asked him to play, and
there you go.
He actually did it pretty well. So he had a huge part in it, but no bigger than anyone else, it sounds like.
Boy, David, you're smooth. Exactly. That's right.
No, I've been in it. Some of these questions come from my background and my thinking, and I didn't take the coaching gig and go into the front office. I went into business, and that worked out. And but I know that transition. And when you said, no, my mindset was to be a player, that's my one stubbornness. No, if I'm not going to be a player in the big leagues, I'm going to go do something else.
Yep.
And there's days though I think, could I have been in the front office in an MLB deal now, or could I be at a college somewhere? You think you have those days, but it's worked out. It's been great.
Yeah,
some of this comes from my experience. That's where the questions come from.
Well, they're well put and well organized. So many people in the industry that are deep in it or periphery or otherwise, the questions are, but these are big time questions and on point. And you said something there that really drove me more than after I was done playing, wanting to be something. And that is this idea that the answer was always yes, no matter what the job was, because I wanted the experience. And so when I had an opportunity to go play in Hungary, yeah, I'll do it. And my wife was like, well, you crazy. Yeah, I want to do this. Chance to get back maybe to Western Europe. But I use those now. I learned how to speak Hungarian because this was 6-7 years at most after the wall had fallen. But now when things happen in the world, I know what the Balkans looks like. I know where Hungary is located. I know there's a Buda and a Pest. It's not just one place of Budapest, and they're on either side. So those kind of things come through those experiences, and it's really facilitated a lot of my life and having them.
It's a great learning experience.
Wanting to be a basketball player, you ended up learning some geopolitics in the world. That's fascinating. That is how it happens a lot of times with guys like that. I mean, you're in places you'd never thought you'd be, and you have to kind of do as the Romans,
That's right. Sometime I'll just break out and start speaking Hungarian and like, what? Because, hey, I'm not kidding, man. I'm over there, and the coach he starts speaking Hungarian. And I'm like, what the hell is
Did you not have a translator? They didn't have you a translator?
So there was an American who understood it over there, and there was one guy on the team, but the wall, right? The wall, the big wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
The thinking is different.
Yeah.
The whole ideology. So the translator's not thinking, okay, this is what he's like, okay, it's basketball, he'll know. And the coach goes, nah, and he just rattles off Hungarian. I'm like, oh my God, y'all didn't tell me this. And so, but I bet you within 3 months, I was out there speaking it. And it was a function of survival. If I was going to keep playing, I had to speak it. I mean, I went in the store, David, and I was like, hey, ma'am, can you tell me where the water is? She goes, "What?" I was like, "Water." She's like, "Water." No, I was like, she's copying me. She had no idea what the heck I was talking about. So I learned these. I learned how to say water.
Yeah.
If I'm going to drink, I got to know how to tell the person.
Give us a water in Hungarian.
I think it's now my Hungarian's gotten horrible, but I think it's V's, like VIS. Okay. And someone who sees this, if they know Hungarian, they can speak it. Edge, ketu, haram, nej, ut, harmats, that's counting. Kosher labda, that's basketball.
Wow.
That's cool.
Besels Angelo, do you speak English? Besels Magyarul, do you speak Hungarian? Magyar is, I mean, so
you had to do that to survive.
Perce is like, of course. Of course. Wow. I got one for you, though. You want a great story.
Yeah.
Okay. So, beautiful girl. I'm over there. I'm married. And
get the edit button. Get the edit button. There you go.
No, this is a great story, man. I'm over there. And we're talking. She's helping me navigate, get my family organized. And we're about to leave. And she looks at me and she goes, "Pussy." I said, "What did you?" And she comes and kind of kisses me on the cheek. I was like, I was messed up for a while. So later on, I found out the way they say goodbye or greet, they say just what I said, "Pussy." And I was like, holy cow. But so, David, I'm not joking.
I should have used that in baseball. It might have saved a few relationships. I don't know.
David,
I'm saying goodbye. Where? It's over here.
Hey, when in Rome, you can edit it if you need to, but I swear that's how they do it, and then they'll kiss you on the cheek. Pussy. I'm like, holy God, what the hell just happened?
Oh God,
that's classic.
Oh, and last one. So I know what it's like to go back in time also. So they see a brother, like it's behind the wall. The only place they saw brothers, maybe on TV, if they had them. So, and I was in a small town called Sekesfeheva. I still go every 5-8 years. I'll go. So I'm over there, Mike and Dave, and little boys like Fekete. Oh, and they stop. I'm like, what the hell is? Literally, you have a crowd. This was years ago. They're sitting because they never seen somebody with dark skin, darker than this dark. I was like, my wife, we like, oh my God. They would stop. So you get way down the street and they would still just be like, you think I'm joking?
Wow. No, that's amazing. So,
I mean, amazing.
Wow.
It's not like you can report it or anything. It's all of them. They're all like, oh my God, this is different.
Right. Well, just that a society could be that sheltered.
Yes.
From all kinds of aspects is I think that's what the first thing that comes out to me of talking about the lack of freedoms. I mean, and the experiences.
Yeah. It was just, you said it well. You said it well. That's
the 90s. That's well into the mid and late 90s.
That's exactly when it was. It was the mid and late 90s. And like the car they would drive was a Trabant. And a Trabant was because you could, back then and during the wall, they could only buy Eastern Bloc vehicles. So these look like the vehicles for us because they didn't have a lot of space. So they weren't big vehicles, but like the little vehicle and the Barnum and Bailey thing where you a bunch of people are in there, and you're like, how in the heck are they fitting? So they supplied us with a nice Ford, because that was when all those plants were over there.
Right.
And we would come back to the car, and this is not a hyperbole. There'd be 7, 8 people around the car, like looking like it was a spaceship. I'm not kidding.
So when you were playing, were you on what used to be the Eastern Bloc? Were you on what would have been the Soviet side of the wall? Or
well, Hungary was part of that.
So the whole country was on the Eastern.
Okay. Yeah, Hungary, Romania, all of those, Poland. So we were in Hungary, but by then, the wall had fallen. But it hadn't.
Right.
A lot of the West had not come in all the way. So there were, that stuff takes time.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened is I went back about 4 or 5 years ago. It's day and night.
Wow.
Really?
Like all of that, what I just explained, it is gone. In fact, that car, the Trabant, they're illegal to have now.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so all of that stuff it's no longer in existence.
That's fascinating.
Oh, it was. I could tell you story after story, man. That it was incredible, man.
All of that to happen to you in your 20s when you were playing had to make you grow up, mature, however you want to describe it, in a hurry, didn't it?
Oh man, that's. I'm serious. This conversation, this interview or conversation has more catharsis to it than you realize. Yeah, I didn't know it though. You're just doing what you need to do to survive.
Exactly.
And it did make me grow up. It made me understand geography in a way like sometimes I can even read something and know where it's kind of off or not accurate, just based on the experience of being there. I really challenged myself. Actually, when I went back, my friend, Rodney Terry, the assistant at UT, I took him and we ended up driving to Auschwitz. The two brothers with GPS, man, on the dang phone. We went to the Czech Republic, and then we were like, "You want to go?" We're like, "We're over here." We literally put on our phone and we drove all the way to Auschwitz.
Wow.
In Poland. Yeah.
Oh my.
What was that? I mean, we're kind of getting off. So what was that like? I got to ask you if you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. It was. Let me see how to describe it. It was one of those once in a lifetime deals, and it was meant to be, because when we got there, it was literally we're walking up, and the lady says, "This is the last English tour." And so you go and you see this camp, and it was heavy. You just feel like the weight of that going through the camp, and seeing the train where they brought them in. You see, it was like nothing I've ever seen before, particularly in Europe. I mean, it was, or in this case, Central or Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
It was just, whoa. It was unthinkable. Unthinkable.
Wow.
It's amazing what you've seen. Just the fact that, but by playing in Europe, some people think of it, no offense, but some people think, oh, couldn't cut it in the NBA, so you have to go to Europe. Wow. But you learn so much, you mature so much, and it opens your eyes about so much that I think it does wonders for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And to the playing part, what you do, what you learn. And I learned this early in my career. I didn't know it when I was at Virginia. You take it as far as you can in that particular category or lane, and then you try to find another lane and take that one, UT, as far as you can. Mm-hmm. Find another lane, NBA, take that one as far as you can. And you do that until you just can't do it anymore. And that's what happened in I couldn't do it anymore and didn't want to do it anymore. But also, to your point of not being able to play, it happens both ways. There are Europeans that are stars there that cannot come over here and exist and play. And vice versa. There are stars here or very good NBA players that can't go over there and play. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it that impacts it is the stuff we're talking about. It's life.
Yep.
It's when you go over there, for example, they practice in maybe not quite as much, but similarly 2 times a day, like it's nothing. That's just nothing. And then adjusting to language and food and culture and travel and all of those things. Sometimes, particularly if you've had a 7-8 year NBA career, it is a lot of times those guys will shut it down just because it's like, whoa, that's no pun here. It's too foreign.
Yeah.
So I don't take offense to that at all, Mike. I'm actually very proud of that.
Exactly. You should be.
Yeah, I'm proud because of my longevity in the industry, but also it's informed the latter parts of my career in a humongous way, in ways I never would have thought.
Yeah.
And so now if I want to know about a player, I got a group of people I can call in the Balkans, literally, or WhatsApp, and we can talk about them just like us three are talking here on this StreamYard call.
Podcast, baby. It's podcast.
It's podcast. I'm sorry. Podcast.
God. You're in the box seats with Lowery and Barnes. You should be happy right now.
Baby.
Hey, and you know what? I'm loving every minute of it.
Okay, you're gonna love this. I've got to tell a Lance Blank story. It's one of my favorite Lance Blank stories. I think it was the summer of '99. You could correct me about the year, but you're in the car with my old photographer Kenny Kaplan. I'm in the back seat. You're in the front seat on the passenger side, and we're driving around. I forget where we were going, and you're bringing up the question about, should I get into broadcasting? I'm thinking about getting into broadcasting. And you lean back, hey, Mr. Barnes, you got any suggestions for me? And so what do? I say, Lance, I think you should take advantage of the fact that you're a star at UT. I know that was almost 10 years ago, but you're a star at UT. I know that you can talk your way into becoming like the quote unquote sideline reporter for the radio broadcast, or maybe if they do some TV broadcast. I know you could do that. It would be so easy for you because you're a legend here already. You know the game so well. Everyone knows you. You can have free reign everywhere. It would be great. You're a great talker. You're very personable. That's what I think. I think that's what you should do. And you're like, yeah. A couple of months later, you're working for the San Antonio Spurs. You don't do anything with broadcasting. and from there, you become a GM with the Phoenix Suns, and you're like NBA legend.
Barnes, you weren't listening. He said when the lane opens up, and that admin lane opened up, baby, and he took that exit and went.
No, he heard my advice and said, Barnes is crazy. I'm doing this.
Hey, but no, Barnes, I took some of that. And David, I called some Spurs games.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
So thanks to
there's some more life experience. Did you call him with Schoening?
Yes, I did.
Two funny Schoening stories. Yeah, we're gonna have Bill on the show pretty soon.
You gotta have Bill and ask him, because I'm in the office one night looking at tape or something. I get a call and I hear Bill in the background going, "Do it, Lance, do it." Like, what is he talking about? And sure enough, the producers like, "Lance, will you come call a game?" I go, I can't do that. He goes, "No, you'll be fine." Bill's like, "Do it. I told him you studied in school." He said, "I already talked to Pop. He said it's fine for you to do it." I was like, what game are you talking about? Which one you want me to do? The Lakers. I had to go to the bathroom. So I'm like, the Lakers? 24 hours later, I'm sitting in LA calling a game. I have no idea what I'm doing. Zero. And that turned into 3 years of doing it with the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
Second story. I'm sitting with Bill. He and I don't even know if we've ever talked about this. And so I would call games until the playoffs. We would switch between Sean, myself, and I think Steve Kerr that year. No, Steve might have still been playing. So it was Sean and I. So sure enough, we get to the finals. We're playing New Jersey. And I'm on the radio call with him. And late in the fourth, it's obvious we're going to win. We win the game. I have no idea. Don't ask me what happened to the broadcast after the game was over. I literally took my headphones off. got up and I walked, jumped over the table, got with the team and celebrated. To this day, I haven't gone back to finish that dang broadcast. I don't know who Bill talked to. I don't know what he talked about. I was like, buddy, I am out of here.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a true story.
That's
I just
awesome.
left my partner. David, you would never leave Mike. Never.
What do you mean a second?
Huh?
I'm out.
You're out. You just go. That's what I did. I just walked off the set.
That's awesome.
That's classic.
Yeah,
Classic. And now look what you're doing broadcasting wise. You've been on LHN doing Longhorn games for a few years, and you're doing games all over the country now. But let's talk about the Longhorns and real quick, what you think about them. They had all those transfers early in the year, and there were high expectations. Now they're going to go into the tournament kind of limping in. But as we talked about earlier, it doesn't matter how you're going into the tournament because you were an 11 seed and a 10 seed and made some noise. So what are you expecting this year?
Yeah, well, first off, hats off to those guys. I think Chris did in the staff, Rodney and so forth. They did a heck of a job considering the pressure and how much expectations they had on them with the portal and the guys they got out of there. And it's not talked about a lot in sport, but it is hard to meet the mark of expectation. And I think they did that. I don't think they were fifth place this year. And I think third would have been asking a bit much just for the whole situation. So if you look back at every game, and probably two you want to circle is maybe TCU and maybe Kansas State here. But Kansas State was really good. They weren't marketed that way. They had a lot of games they lost late. And this is not me being the take up for the program guy. I'm shooting it straight with you. And TCU was very good. They lost a game against West Virginia at the end of the season, but the two games before that, they beat Kansas at home, and they took them to the wire, them meaning Kansas, at home as well. So TCU is a very good ball club for Texas to have to beat a third time. So hats off to that tournament. I think they'll be fine. Chris has obviously been there and had great success. They have a veteran ball club. The most important thing, and guys, you may know this schedule better than me, when these selections are made coming up here or having just been made, whichever it is.
They're about to start.
Okay, whoever they're matched up against is what will determine their success. And I don't necessarily just mean seeding.
Mm-hmm.
Your point about us being 10-11 seed, it's who is that 10-11 seed? What do they do as a ball club?
Mm-hmm.
If this is a big finesse type team, they're going to have probably more trouble with Texas. If this is a TCU type team that has athletes that can battle with them, then Texas will have possible issues. So it really depends on not the seeding, but who they're playing once they are seeded.
All right, which was the key to your success, matching up against Georgia Tech, matching up against Georgia, even Purdue.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's right.
So a lot of it's luck of the draw.
That's right. And we didn't know this, but those teams had the pressure on them. We didn't know it because Coach Penders prepared us to your point, in a confident way. But yeah, I would rather have the better team and be the worst seed, have the worst seeding, than be not as good and have the higher seeding, because you have a little more pressure in that, and not all teams and people and players play well under those circumstances.
And to your point a while ago, the Big 12 top to bottom, I heard a lot of my basketball buddies, they thought the Big 12 was probably the best or the most solid league top to bottom in the country this year. Would you agree with that?
I think I would have until this whole the challenge with the SEC. I think the SEC won that. So I would put the Big 12 solidly in the top three, but I would not put them clearly as number one. I think I got wooed a little bit with that because that's primarily who I was seeing and we were seeing.
Right.
Top to bottom, I would say they're as good, but I wouldn't say they're clearly
They're the top.
the top dog. Yeah, I mean, SEC has proven they're pretty dang good. The Big Ten is really good with some dudes. Surprisingly, the Big East is shown itself to be so. So I would put them in the top 3. Certainly not 4, but probably the top 3.
Do you think the Big East making a little comeback? Like when we were growing up, that was a big, they were the big deal in the 80s and 90s. So you think they're showing a little juice now?
Correct.
Back to life.
Yeah.
Who do you like? What teams do you like?
Just nationally, or are you talking about
just,
Big 12?
4 or 5 teams you really like that you think could win it all.
Well, some win it alls. Arizona, you got to tip your hat to the chances of them, having a chance. Auburn, even though they've gotten upset a little bit here of late, but I'd have to throw Auburn in that. Easy one is Gonzaga. You have to put in that conversation. You didn't ask this, but the Duke thing, that would scare me a little bit because they're having these hiccups. And I think with Coach K moving on, it's almost exaggerated the target on their back. Mm-hmm. People don't seem to want to play right with them. And so they've run into some challenges. And the ACC wasn't great. So their preparation, I think, will have been a little bit different. But off the top of my head, those 3 programs I think you have to have in the conversation.
Can Purdue make a run? I've heard other basketball people say Purdue.
Yes. They have some good inside guys and perimeter guys that are very dangerous. You definitely need good guard play, but you need perhaps rim protection and to shore up things on the inside. Purdue offers that in a big time way. Marquette is a possible sneaker. Shaka's done a great job. They didn't do well in their tournament, which I think for them is a good thing because perhaps they recalibrate a little bit, but they could be really dangerous. I think Texas could be dangerous as well. Those are the kind of teams Kansas. So, I mean, it may not be hugely wide, but there are some teams that we haven't mentioned that could make
Baylor could make another run, maybe. Baylor
is the one that could make a run. The injuries, I think, got them clipped up this season. Everyday John losing him, that to me was a big deal. And Coach Drew has done an incredible job, especially considering all the injuries. That worries me a little bit. But if they're seeded properly in proper matchups, yeah, they could make a deep run for sure.
I've seen a lot of basketball in my time. I'm not nearly the expert that Lance Blanks is. But because of this year's Longhorn team, most of them being born around the year 2000, which was about 10 years after it happened. But I personally think if they had someone who could do a Lance dance, kind of like you did in 90, that would do it all right there.
That's how you bring the crowd. I'm so glad you mentioned that because not only the excitement of that, people occasionally will ask about teams and history. And one of the reasons I know a lot of the history here is because being raised in Houston and Phi Slamma Jamma and watching the Burnt Orange when they were coming to Houston with those tighty orangies on. Those things, you look like you have to go to the doctor after you wore them things. But I know that history. I know it so well, Mike. But I will say, if I can pound my chest in any way for our team in our era, we were definitely 100% not the most talented team to come through this university. And 100%. In fact, I would say we were not one of the top 2 talented teams. But I would also argue we were by far likely more than the most popular to ever come through the 40 acres. Yes. And it's because of the timing, the people we had involved, the coach who he wasn't shy about giving you a quote. And also, if I can add, the charisma and the poor dancing might have helped just a little bit.
That's pretty. I would take Lance's consistent scoring ability. If he wanted to dance, have at it. But we need consistent scores.
Hey, David, when you got it, this being in business. When you got a guy who's behind you and telling you, go, go, go. It's like being in marketing and you have an unlimited spending budget. How can you screw that up?
Yeah.
You just keep spending until you get it right. Right?
Oh, that's great.
Well, we just kept shooting until they eventually went in.
That's beautiful. I mean, who could complain about that? Hey, start shooting or I'm benching you. I'm like,
that's right. That's
God,
right.
I wish I'd have had that in the 8th grade because I didn't want to play defense. I just wanted to air it out, That's why I went right over to football and baseball after 9th grade. I said, hey, I'm going to go over to football and baseball.
And see, Lance danced his way all the way to the Elite 8.
That's right.
That's good.
Hey, I've got a little pet peeve, a little fun question. I'm a fashion poobah in all the sports. And I get evolution and all that kind of carrying on. And I get the plague happened. And so they let the coaches dress down. Do you like the coaches dressing down, or do you miss the sport coat and or the suits on the sideline? Do you like the sweatsuits on the sideline?
Well, 1A and 1B. 1B, wear what you want. I'm going to go 1B, wear what you want. I give you 1A because you asked it, which I prefer. You might remember the NBA had a dress code.
Right.
issue, okay? And then the dress code turned into the guys wearing stuff that I hope I would never even be caught dead wearing, but it turned into this big brouhaha about the clothing. So if I were picking, I think I like the new garb.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I like the new garb. It's kind of cool, gives it a relaxed feel, and I think it's in line with where we are societally.
Right.
Versus where you were back then. And the other thing is, back in the day, the NBA needed to gain fans and a respectability that it hadn't earned yet from fans and whatnot. And I think the dress code and the coach's dress and all of that did that. And now the younger group gets to live off of that and wear the more casual garb, if you will.
Right. Kind of golf. I've noticed throughout the year they've kind of gone from like Olympic coaching with a golf shirt. Now they're kind of going with a long sleeve golf pullover. They're trying to get it just right with comfort and the style in this new era.
You know, college coaches, they all haven't jumped in. Let's see. Mike Woodson at Indiana, he's wearing suits and he comes out of the old school NBA.
Right.
But
ironically, Bobby Knight wore the sweater before anyone was doing that. That's
great
amazing.
call.
Yeah.
That's a great call.
Yeah.
But some coaches like their suits and whatnot.
Well, think about if college coaches didn't wear suits in the old days, we'd never see Penders taking off that jacket and throwing it down and getting called for attack.
Hey, I've got a story on that. I've got a story.
What you got?
Somehow Penders got me and Brent Duhon. You remember Brent, tickets to a basketball game. And right behind the bench, here's the players, here's like the next row of coaches, and then we're here. We're right there, and we're watching the game, and it's about the second, about 10 minutes into the first half. Call goes his way. Off comes the coat. He slings it. It hits me right in the head. I got the coat on my head. That's a true story. He hit me and Duhon with his coat. Said, hey, I gave it to the manager. Said, you might want to put this somewhere. That's pretty funny. So
that's good stuff.
That's good.
Good stuff. Lance Blanks, this has been so much fun going down memory lane with you. You are a blast.
Well, hey, thanks, Mike. Thanks, David. I'm honored to have done this. Anytime, buddy. I love going down memory lane, and I'm so excited about what you are doing. Please do more of this. We need all kinds of stories out and having people share them and listen to them. And we also need more people who know what the heck they're talking about. There aren't two better ones than you two guys. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm still worried about those tight orange shorts. I don't want them to, kind of like after you wore those, you'd come out saying pussy or something. I didn't know.
It looked painful. And I wasn't back in that day. I wasn't a horn yet. And so I was like, okay, the Cougs are going, the Five Slam Jam is going to get it done. But these poor players need to get these shorts. They need to stretch these shorts off. God, this doesn't look healthy.
Now that I'm totally with you on the shorts. Remember when we were kids, they were all like that. I mean, Bobby Knight had his guys like in string bikinis out there. I mean, you watch Indiana, all those corn-fed guys. I'm like, my God, that's obscene. And so I like the baggier. I like the baggier short.
Yeah,
I'm a baggy
man.
short fan.
You can go short, but bag it a little bit. No pun intended.
It's all about fashion.
That's unbelievable. That's good stuff.
Thank you, Lance Blanks. We appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Man.
Take care, man. All the best. Enjoy March Madness.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right.